Well, welcome to another podcast from Odell Technology. Today we're honoured to be joined by Professor Lennard Lee. Welcome to the podcast, Professor Lee.
Thanks, Stephen. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here.
It's an honour to have you, sir. I'd like to ask you, if you wouldn't mind explaining to the audience about your professional background and how you ended up where you are today, please, sir.
So, Stephen, I'm an associate professor at the University of Oxford. I'm involved in cancer research here. I'm also a practicing medical oncologist, so I actually see people with cancer. And I've also got a few national roles where I'm National Clinical Advisor to NHS England and Office for Life Sciences. That's my professional background.
Fantastic. And tell me, as an associate professor at Oxford, are you looking after PhD students? Are you involved in research? What is it you're doing there?
So it's mainly a research and teaching role here. So we are running a few major projects across Oxford, researching into how better to treat people with cancer, and also how to bring about the learnings that we've delivered from our university over the last 3 years, because we've been really lucky in Oxford being able to deliver fast projects. And so my role here is a teaching and research one. But actually, one thing I probably need to say is I'm also still seeing patients too. So I'm also a grounded Oxford University researcher too.
And you see the patients at the Churchill?
That's correct, yeah. So I'm a consultant at the Churchill, and actually I quite like that part of the role because I think the science is fascinating, the research is fast moving, but actually the benefits of being clinical academics is that you see the patients understand why you need to do it, because they ask you what's coming, can I have it? And actually what's stopping the UK deliver this, and what's stopping it happening in Oxford and across our cancer centres.
Well, talking about interesting things that are coming, there's the Cancer Vaccine Program, which I know you're passionate about. Would you mind telling us a bit about that, please?
Yeah, that's a really exciting project. So what's our strengths of the country? What have we achieved? Well, actually, one of the things that we've really done well with is our vaccine response. What we've shown in our country and in a few other countries around the world is that it's possible to take a product which doesn't exist, move it rapidly through early development phases, coronavirus vaccines, deploy it and test it very, very quickly. And we were quite lucky that the UK was one of the few countries which could develop our own product and take it through clinical trials very, very quickly. And now there's a lot of confidence in our sector about this capability in the UK, the ability to bring in technologies rapidly through testing and out the other side into routine clinical care. If you look at our vaccine response, it took a year. And actually what people are now talking about, getting very excited in our community now, is the potential of a vaccine for cancer and the potential that we could move as fast as the pandemic response, use the same skills and infrastructure that's there, but change the patient group here using the best technology from around the world. So in our country, we've got a partnership with some leading manufacturers. There's two at the moment, a famous German one and a very famous American one with technology in this space.
More than welcome to mention them. You're more than welcome to mention them.
So Moderna technology and BioNTech's technology. And the UK is actively opening sites at the moment and trying to accelerate these clinical studies. And I was brought in about a year ago to advise and try and get these up and running. And Stephen, they're going very fast at the moment. There's a lot of interest. And what we're hearing is patients are keen to know, and it barely feels like a month that goes by before you're seeing another big newspaper article about first jab in a new setting, or patients seeing benefit. And it's the potential really is there for the research to go fast at the moment. And actually, it's an open doors type thing in the UK, because patients are asking for it, clinicians want to run it, and hospitals are opening. So I think this is a story in evolution, but it's an exciting one.
I saw recently that BioNTech have formed a relationship with the United Kingdom, which I think you know a great deal about. Could you just briefly explain what that is, please?
Yeah, it's aspirational, actually, because what we saw in the last few years is that when a healthcare system partners with industry for the benefits of patients, you can go pretty fast because you've got the focus, you've got the speed, and you're working hand in hand. And so what we do know, what's happened is that a partnership's been signed between the United Kingdom and BioNTech to try and accelerate studies. And you can see tweets by various different government officials about this. And it's great, actually, because the aspirations are that a national advance will start in the UK to benefit 10,000 patients through clinical trials across multiple types of cancers, and this we achieved by 2030. So a bit in the future, but actually we're one of the first countries which holds this partnership to get this technology going. I think it's interesting because we may be in a situation whereby the UK stood up and played its part in the world here. During the pandemic, we helped accelerate vaccines. We developed vaccines for coronavirus. We gave the first vaccine outside a clinical trial. And then we went on to do the next step. One of the few countries that are brave enough to say again, well, actually, why don't we take this learning from the pandemic and actually deliver the pandemic silver lining, which is that we will get the trials going for cancer vaccines and actually deliver that for the world too. If they do that, that'd be fantastic. But actually, Stephen, this is going to be a global feat here because we do need other countries to play their part too. And they are, but they're doing it very silently too. Actually, what we do need is for the world to stand up and actually say, look, the trials need to be powered. It can be done in our countries too. But actually, the UK has been actually the barometer in terms of what we want to do. We pointed the way and said, we'll do this too. And actually, our best centres are opening so quickly now. It's just astounds me about how fast they're opening and how excited they are. And actually, if this delivers, it'd be fantastic for patients around the world with cancer.
Lennard, it's very nice of you to talk about these things in such a bright light. I think I see on the news a lot of darkness about the NHS, but a lot of people are unaware of the wonderful things and the wonderful people that are actually active in systems like this. And speaking of that, there's the NHS Galleri study.
Yes.
Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah, so the NHS Galleri study is a fantastic study, again, delivered from the UK. And this was to ask a slightly different question here. So rather than can we develop a new treatment for cancer, like a cancer vaccine, what this wants to do is, can we diagnose people early? Can we have a test which can diagnose 50 types of cancer? Quite a lot of this, I helped run that as one of the senior operations leads within there. And actually what we were able to do there is run another fast study again, using the benefits of a universal healthcare system. That study randomized 140,000 people in 10 months. And half the patients got a new blood test to diagnose 50 types of cancer, and the other half were being monitored. It's using genomic technology. That's going to read out very shortly too. But it was quite a good study because it showed the strengths of the NHS in terms of opening study sites quickly and putting huge numbers of people through trials using unified healthcare systems. So interesting. And again, testament to the 70 odd hospitals around the UK who could just move as one block in one healthcare system to open trials.
It is quite amazing. It's really utilising the infrastructure that's been there for a long time.
And Stephen, I think I'll just point to the fact that actually, yes, we've got the pros and cons of different healthcare systems, but actually having one healthcare system move quickly, not state by state, city by city, insurer by insurer, does show the strength. So I think all healthcare systems are having issues around the world at the moment, but actually, if you can move quickly as one, then that's the strength.
Absolutely. There was a cancer COVID study.
Yep, it was.
The NHS, which you played a big part of, I believe. Can you tell me something about that, please?
Yes, I was one of the founder of the UK COVID cancer program. And again, just trying to show why it's good to do research in the UK. That was one of them. The background was that in 2020, we had to answer the question as a community, the cancer community, come together. Should we be delivering cancer care and chemotherapy during a major pandemic? So I've got to take you back. We saw those images that came out of China, people on floors, hazmats, hospitals being closed down, barricaded. And actually at that time point, back in March 2020, horrific times, the question we had to ask ourselves then was, what should we do in the UK? Should cancer care be continued, or actually is the safest thing to send cancer patients home and tell them to shield, close their door, do not go out, get provisions brought in, and we'll worry about their cancer later. That was certainly the message that was coming out of the Far East and our Italian neighbours. They said, actually, that's the only safest way, keep people out of hospital if they're vulnerable and cancer. But the converse there was a scary one, that we shouldn't be given cancer care. We should stop treatment. So I was quite I was actually humbled to be asked to run that project. And what we had to do is just get data, because it was being done on, I feel this is the right thing to do to close my clinic. And on top of that, patients weren't coming forward at that time point. So on the UK COVID cancer program, we set our systems a very simple task: record every patient who got coronavirus who had a cancer diagnosis, and then capture a few bits of information, whether they were on chemotherapy or not, and we'll do the analyses. So the UK COVID cancer program pulled 86 cancer centres data together, and amazingly, we were able to analyse the results. And by May 2020, we had the first inkling that actually it wasn't chemotherapy that was driving mortality in cancer patients back in 2020. It was their age, it was their comorbidities, but chemotherapy per se wasn't a factor. Actually, we acted very, very strongly. We were really lucky that we got our first paper out in the Lancet showing that chemotherapy was okay to be given during the pandemic. You can deliver cancer care safely back then. We published back to back with the Americans, again, using their huge data programs too, but obviously the country much, much bigger than the UK. But we were able to also move quite quickly too. And that consortium has largely driven standards in terms of cancer care and published 16 papers, even reporting vaccine effectiveness too. The program's coming to an end, but actually shows the benefits of having the data available to hand, pooling everyone's information for the greater good here. And again, it was a UK first, again, showing the benefits of having healthcare systems which collects data across all cancer patients, blood cancer, solid organ cancer, and our ability of the community to pull together for patients, because the patients were up there banging the drum saying, use our data, tell us what's safe, tell us what's not safe, tell us who's at risk. And actually, we were able to respond quite quickly for that.
Speaking of fast response, there's also the Moonshot program. You
Yeah.
were involved in that as well.
Yeah, again, one thing where you've had success in, well, I don't think it was my success. I think you just get caught up and you've just got to make the choice. Do you want to help the project or not? And the Moonshot program was another UK special. So the background to this was back end of 2020, we had to think about who was getting PCR testing for coronavirus. And actually the issue was that PCR testing is really expensive. Like, it's a couple of £100, need big laboratories to be stood up, and you don't get the result for a few days. And there was always that and we were hearing stories of people who had a bit of a cold in 2020 and just went to the pub afterwards after their PCR test, which was clearly not the right thing to do. And the UK government want to ask the question, could we do it cheaper, faster, better, and actually empower people to do the test themselves? You and me, Stephen, know what the solution was, and it's been deployed across the world now, but it was that £1 lateral flow test. I mean, we've got them in the back. I've got them at the moment, and that's now the standard of how people test for coronavirus. But we were tasked in the UK with setting up rapid clinical studies to achieve this. Take over coronavirus testing centres, get nurses trained in lateral flow testing and sampling, and look at accuracy there. We were tasked with doing this in 30 days, so quite ambitious in terms of proving a clinical study. And we started in the UK on the 14th of September 2020. 36 days later, on the 20th of October 2020, we had the answer about, it was picking up the most infectious people. And actually, if you look at the UK metrics here, in terms of what we show the world that we can do here, at day 40 from the study start, it was implemented across our university academic sector in preparation of keeping our students safe as they returned. At day 50, the Liverpool mass testing program started. So I don't know if you knew that, but the whole of Liverpool switched on and started testing the city with lateral flows. At day 53, on the 6th of November 2020, our healthcare systems turned on, started deploying lateral flow testing. I was quite proud of that, because we were always worried that doctors and nurses were spreading it to patients because they were asymptomatic. But with lateral flows, also, they were empowered to test themselves and find out if they were positive and really take measures to protect their patients. And at day 54, the UK rolled it out across all local authorities across our country. So again, 14th of September 2020, the technology landed in the UK. By October, universities came online. By November, cities and hospitals came online. and it got rolled out across our country after that. Cheap technology to develop coronavirus. And I'm glad that actually across the world, this helped the third world too, because you can't set up PCR systems. You can do lateral flow testing. And actually, if you look at the news, Biden's just rolled out more free lateral flow testing across America too. So whatever happens in the UK becomes a barometer of uptake across the world, which is quite nice, actually. Healthcare systems working, research systems working, and didn't expect it to happen from the UK, but we did it.
Yes, indeed. I think what's happened in the last, I think from 2020, I think that there's still many things we can sing about, and we realise our power as a one joint unit. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring to people's attention?
Stephen, I think one of the things I would probably, a parting message really, is that actually the landscape of research in the UK and across the world has changed during the pandemic. And the reason why I say this is because research used to take 10, 20 years. We would say that if you got a new product or new drugs, put aside 2 decades before it can change patients' lives. The pandemic changed everything, didn't it? Because actually it turned everything on its head. It said that actually if the need is great, can we streamline processes? Can we go faster? Can we deliver technological advances at a pace that we've never seen before? And you and me lived through it. The world lived through it. We saw every month new scientific developments happening, technology coming through quicker. And actually, the things that we required to achieve this were very minimal, actually. But we did it as a world, as a species across healthcare system, and particularly in the UK. And these were very simple things. Approve quicker and do this in parallel. Change your processes to go digital, virtual. Put the patient at the forefront of what you do, and also be aware that the risk of going slow or the risk of doing nothing confers risk too. So if you don't take action, that is a choice in itself too. And what I'm seeing now is that you look across the piece of what we talked about here, the pandemic acceleration points are now entering clinical practice now, and technology developments can happen much, much quicker here. So I have no doubt that without our learnings from the pandemic, the NHS Galleri study wouldn't be going this fast, nor would the cancer vaccine projects go this fast. I think we are rapidly transferring knowledge and expertise here in terms of speeding things up. And I think the legacy of the pandemic will be the speed here. How quickly can systems run now? Will they take those lessons, or are they going to fall back? I'd hope that the UK doesn't fall back. I hope that none of the European countries, Asian countries fall back. But it's about streamlining efficient process and that mindset and confidence to go faster, to go better, and to maintain that quality along the way.
Do you think that some of this is that people are more prepared to accept real-world evidence and observational studies than they are to begin a randomized controlled trial? Because randomized controlled trials, I think, have been at the forefront of many things, and they are long, expensive processes, extremely expensive, whereas there's other ways of generating evidence, be it maybe flawed or not, but I think there's the ability for health technology assessment organizations to look at observational studies, to look at real-world evidence. Do you think that's part of it?
Yeah, good point, Stephen. I think evidence is evidence, and there's different tiers of quality, and you've got to make a decision. There's always that temptation to go for perfection, isn't there? You need to have perfect data, otherwise you can't decide. But I think there's a role for both of them, actually, because if you look at some of our capabilities which we deploy from Oxford, which I wasn't involved in, the recovery study, randomized control clinical studies which looked at what was safe it wasn't safe. It was about what was effective for treating patients with coronavirus who ended up in hospital. I'll give you their metrics. They started on the 17th of March 2020. They had their result at day 80, a randomized control study, responding very, very quickly. So it can be done, but they did streamline process too. They got all staff to recruit patients to study. They streamlined their consent process, and they got rapid and parallel approvals too. It was fast, so that there's a role there. But equally, there's a lot of data which should be brought out through real-world data studies. So like our UK COVID cancer program looked at vaccine effectiveness, and you can go at a similar pace too. So it's not randomized, but actually gives you a level of evidence that vaccines do work in cancer patients. And the result of that, well, we fortunately we had 90 to 95% uptake in vaccination, but we can also see where it's not working too. That's the benefit of both programs. They give you evidence and data at different qualities and speeds, but actually, again, randomized control studies are in a state of flux. They can go faster, and actually, I think that's what our patients are asking us: what is taking so long for benefits? And actually, if you've got a stage 4 metastatic cancer, your time it's not indefinite. And actually, for that person, you've got to take it back to why we're doing this here, because you want to try and benefit the patient in front of you, the people with cancer now, not just their children, but actually the benefit now. And that could be the pandemic silver lining, that we're brave enough as a species, as countries, of healthcare systems to move faster to benefit patients, and to get benefits. I mean, I don't think we're going to see benefits within a year like we saw in the pandemic, but actually, even if you reduce that 20 years to 5 years or even 2 years, I think that will be beneficial, really.
Tell me, in your area up in Oxford, and working with the Churchill and the integrated care system, have you got a CRO working of some kind where people could come to you and say, look, can we do some research here?
Yeah, I think just if anyone's interested, do have a chat with me drop me an email. My profile's on the university website. I think we're building a fantastic team in Oxford, but actually across all aspects of the United Kingdom, there are fantastic teams out there who can deliver research quickly now. The UK is a fantastic place to do research because we've got a single healthcare system which can move quickly. We've got strong networks, so all of our clinicians are talking across our different 100 cancer centres, and actually we can deliver, and we've got the confidence to deliver things quicker nowadays, just because we've had a few successes behind us. Actually, fantastic group of people and a great country to do research in.
Very well, Lennard. Well, thank you very much for your time today. It's been an honour. And I look forward to speaking to you again maybe in 6 months' time with the progress of a couple of interesting programs you're involved in. And I wish you all the very best and good health in the future.
Thanks so much, Stephen.